Hello, welcome to the Waffle Flower Postage Cupcake Die and Stencil promotion video. That's a mouthful. I am here today to show you how great this little die and stencil is, and we are giving it away free this weekend with a $60 purchase. So there is a link in this video at the bottom. Giving you the link to the section on our online store where you can add this wonderful die and stencil to your cart, and then you can go shopping for your minimum of $60 worth of product, and then you can get this die for free. So let's talk about what it is. It is a little die, but it is a postage circle die. What does that mean? It means that it's going to cut out this circle, but on the edge, it's going to give you that beautiful postage edge along with some stitching. And then there is a coordinating stencil. You can see that there's different sections on here. There's 5 different sections. And as you move the stencil along, it stencils different parts of a cupcake that fits perfectly into this die cut circle. So let me just show you the circle. So this is the circle when it cuts out. You can see that it's the perfect little size, and it adds that stitching detail and that postage edge. And it also looks great just like this, but it also nests nicely on top of a circle that you might already have in your stash. Now, the circle I used was from Master Layouts 3 from Gina K. I'm just going to pull that over. This is just a nice collection of basic dies, squares and circles and banners. And there is a circle in this set that fits perfectly behind this little postage die when you cut it out. Now, I'm sure if you already have circle dies, there would be something that would be similar in size. Even if there's a little bit wider of a margin around there, that would still work. But this one ended up being the perfect size, and that's the one that I used. It doesn't have any stitching on it. I left it plain since this has lots of decoration on it already. I thought that that worked well. So let's get started in doing the stenciling. I am just going to gather my inks and my blending brushes, and I will be right back. Okay, so I've got my die cut circle, which came from this die here, and I've attached it to a sticky mat. And now I'm going to come in with the stencil. Now there is writing on the stencil, so you want to make sure that your stencil has the writing on the correct side so that you know you're stenciling the right part of the stencil. You're not going to get a backwards image. And this is just going to line up with the stitching on the circle really easily, and the sticky mat will hold my stencil in place. Okay, so the first color I'm going to be using my Pink Fresh inks today. The first color I'm going to use is turquoise, and I'm going to come in with my, oops, I forgot. I like to have a microfiber cloth close by. Just going to brush that off just to make sure there's no ink left over from a previous project. I'm pretty good about cleaning my brushes, but you never know. And then we're just going to go in with the turquoise ink, and we're going to start stenciling. So just going to go in light-handed at first, just until I get a feel for how much ink is going to get put down. And I can always build that color up. It's the best way to do it, really. Okay, and so I'm just going to continue to blend kind of in both directions, all the way around that image. Like so. So that is step 1. Pretty easy, right? Okay, I'm just going to clean that brush off. And the next stencil, I'm just going to lift this up. The next stencil is going to be the top of our cupcake. So again, now that you've got some ink down, it's really easy to line up the next layer. Okay, so we're just going to put that down. And this is going to be the base color of our icing. And I think I'm going to go with a pink cupcake for this one. So I'm going to grab some pink ink, and I'm going to go in with bubble gum. Now I'm going to lay a light-handed layer of this down first. The next stencil that I do icing with, I'm going to use the same color, but I'm just going to go a bit heavier, and it'll be a bit darker. Okay, so very lightly, I'm just going to start applying the ink, and then I can add more pressure as I get stenciling. So there's a nice light layer of pink icing. Oops. I'm just going to leave my pink brush out because I'm going to come back to that. I'm just going to remove that part now so you can kind of see the cupcake forming. Now we're going to come in with this next layer, and this is the actual cake. So when my kids were little, they used to call the cake of a cupcake the fuzzy part. And the icing was the good part, but the fuzzy part, not so much. So this is the fuzzy part, so the actual cake. And I'm going to go in with a very, very light, I'll call it a brown. So I'm going to use warm buff. Okay, just ignore that sound. It's my phone. Somebody's always got to talk to me. So again, I'm taking most of my ink off and I'm going in very lightly because I don't want this to be dark at all. I just want it to be quite light. And then that way we can always build up color if we want, just by going over the area. And there's always quite a bit more ink on your brush than you really think there is. So I'm just picking some up from my glass mat and continuing to build that up until I'm happy with the color. Okay, so now we've got the cake done. And now we're going to come in with the cake wrapper. Okay, so we're just going to lay this part down here. And again, take your time and line up all of the sides. And now we're going to do our actual liner. So I'm going to actually do a nice lime green. So I'm going to go in with Grassy Knoll. Okay. And again, I'm going to start out light. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is come in with a different type of blending brush. This one just is a little bit more detailed, and I'm going to apply some darker shading just along the edge here where the liner meets the actual cake. And this is going to create some really nice dimension with our cupcake liner. I mean, you could get really fancy if you wanted to. You could lay a stencil over this and you could create a patterned liner. So like a striped stencil or a polka dot stencil or something like that. Could layer that over top and create a pattern. So I'm just doing like a pretty simple version of it. But you can do all kinds of fun things with this. And you can get creative with your icing and things too. So now you can see that we've got our icing, our cupcake, and our liner. And the last step is to put the finishing touches on the icing. So I'm just going to line this stencil up. And add the details. So again, I'm going to go back to that pink, that sparkling rose. And I am just going to apply the same color, but I'm going to use one of those more detailed brushes, and that will allow me to kind of slam some ink in there, a little bit deeper color, and that way there's a nice contrast. But you could pick a totally different color and have like a rainbow swirl icing or something like that. But I'm just keeping it pretty basic just to show you how quick and easy this cupcake building can be. Okay, so there we go. So now we have a cupcake on a circle postage stamp, and it's beautiful. So you could actually take that striped stencil and you could drag some paste over top of that dark pink icing. So if you've got a nice glitter paste, like a clear design, you could just drag that through and then let it dry, and then you could have sparkle on your icing. And like I said, you could use another stencil layered over top of this one and add some polka dots to the the liner if you wanted to. So there's lots of options, but that is how easy it is to create the cupcake inside this postage design. Now you could create this stenciled design without the die cut. You can just use the stencil by itself and just do it right on a piece of paper. So if you want it on a panel or something like that, you don't have to have it. It's going to create that circle outline on its own when you use the stencil. So see this part when we stenciled this here, it creates that circle. And then when we do the liner, it finishes the bottom off. So it can be a standalone stencil as well. You don't have to use it along with the die, but it does work quite nicely. And then with that circle that I did before, matting it just in behind, you can pull in different pops of color that way. So I'm just going to clean up my desk and I'll come back with some more inspiration. I'll be right back. Okay, so here are a couple of cards that I made using this little cupcake die and stencil. It is such a versatile little embellishment that you can pretty much make birthday cards in any color that you want. And I think cupcakes are, you know, a universal symbol of birthdays. They also work well for things like graduations and baby showers. Anytime that you would have cupcakes or some kind of celebration, you could use this as well. So this is a mini slim card. And you can see that I made 3 different panels and the icing is a different color on each one. And if you look closely, you can see that the actual postage die notches together like a little gear. And they fit perfectly on the front of a mini slim panel. Now, the dies that I used for that card are the mini slim petite scallop stacklets. So that's the very back layer there. And you can see the scallop along the back. Now you could do that in a different color, but I really like the white on white on white. It just makes it for a really nice crisp card, but you could easily make that scalloped panel a color of cardstock to match the cupcakes that you've got on your panel. And then the piece on top is got stitching on it, and that is the nesting piece that goes with this that has the stitching. So it's also a mini slim stacklet, but it's the stitched ones, stitched mini slim stacklets. And this one here is the largest die, and it nests on this largest die, and that's where you end up with this panel here. So I did use a stencil to create the polka dot background, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. And then here is a standard A2 size card. And this is the one where I use the matting in behind the postage circle die just to add a little pop of color. And I kind of overlapped them in a trio and then just stamped my greeting down below. And speaking of greetings, on this one here, I used the Henry's Build a Sentiment Spring from Lawn Fawn, and I created my own custom sentiment. So you can mix and match any of these words together to create your own sentiment. So whether you want it to be 1 or 2 words or whether you want it to be a whole string of words, that's entirely up to you. And there's lots of different combinations that work well. So I came up with wishing you a happy birthday. And I just sort of made my own banner and popped it on there. So that worked well. And then I had a happy birthday sentiment in my stash that I just stamped directly onto the panel. And that's how I finished that card off. And you can see here that I just added a few little crystals to the background of my card on this one. And on this card, I added 1 little crystal on the top of each cupcake for a little added accent. So that is a nice way to finish them off. Now, to create the polka dot background, I used a stencil called the Confetti Dots Turnabout stencil from Concord and Ninth. And this is a very cool stencil. So you might have heard of their turnabout stamps. Well, this is a turnabout stencil. So I'm starting off with a panel that is 6 by 6. So it's basically the same size as my stencil. And in this case, I'm going to use some magnets to hold the stencil into place while I do my stenciling. So I'm just grabbing a few. I'm going to grab 3 just to hold the corners down. Now I'm stenciling on a 6 by 6 panel. I find that just easy to line up when I'm working with a 6 by 6 stencil. It also gives me the option of doing a vertical or a horizontal panel when I do my card front. So I don't need to know that right away, but it does give me the option. And you'll notice that my cards, one of them went vertical and one of them went horizontal. So by using a 6 by 6 stencil, you have that option. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with the same colors as I did for my cupcake, the pink, the green, the turquoise, and then I'm going to add in a yellow. Okay, so I'm going to add in sunshine. So there are the 4 colors. And I'm going to switch the type of brush that I'm using. I'm going to go with the 1-inch Pink Fresh blending brushes. These brushes are amazing to use when you're doing like nice big areas, and the blending is just spectacular. So I'm just going to switch the type of brush I'm using. I'm going to be able to cover a larger area more quickly, and we're just going to dive in. So I'm going to pull my mat back on here just so I can put my cube on it. And even though I'm using a bigger brush, the 1-inch cube still works really nicely. Okay, so I'm just going to swirl the ink around. Now I know that I'm going to be cutting my panel down to an A2 size. So I don't necessarily have to go all the way out to the outer edges and get every single dot, but I'm going to do my best to get them all covered. And then I can just shift my magnets around to different corners when I need to get up into an area where they might be. But this is a magnetic glass mat, and these magnets are super strong, and they hold the stencil and the paper in place with no problems. So the sticky mat, again, I use that sometimes for certain applications, and then for some other applications, I prefer to use the magnets and the magnetic board. So it just depends on what I'm doing. So there's the first layer. So we're just going to close up that ink pad, and we're going to pull out the next one, which is the pink. I'm going to switch my brush. Okay, so now I've got my, oh, that's my red brush. We don't want that. It says red anyway. Let's just see. Do I have a pink one? Oh, yes, I do. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to pull out my pink brush, and I'm going to take the stencil, and I'm just going to wipe it off with a with my microfiber cloth. Whoops, and bring all my garbage with me. So I'm not going to clean my stencil, but I don't want any of that blue ink to transfer over when I'm doing my ink blending for my pink. So you may have to clean your stencil depending on how heavy you blended, but in this case, just a quick wipe is good. So here's my stencil lined up. I'm going to rotate it a 1/4 turn, and we're set to go. Now this stencil is very forgiving. You don't have to take a lot of time and line it up. You can just go ahead and give it a twist and jump right in. Okay, so now we're going to take our pink ink, and we're going to just ink up the same way we did with the blue. So it's a very easy background to create for sure. And with these big brushes, again, don't forget to swirl in both directions, because sometimes they'll glide over the spots on the stencil, the open spots, and it misses things because the brushes need to spin in the opposite direction. So just, you'll notice it when you're doing it, but just kind of remember to swirl back and forth so that it covers all the open areas. Okay, so now we're done with that. And now we'll move on to the next color, which is going to be our green. And then I've got to switch out my brush. So I need my green one. Now I'm going to have to do a little tidying up here. First of all, I'm going to clean off the stencil. Okay, so quick and easy cleanup there. And I'm also going to clean up this part here, just because I don't want to cross-contaminate my colors and make new ones. So there we've got that. Now I'm just going to rotate this a 1/4 turn again and stick my magnets on top. Okay, and now we're going to come in with our green ink. So the colors don't really overlap a whole lot on this stencil. They just sort of fill in the space. So you don't have to do all the turns if you don't want to. You can do 3 of them, you can do 2 of them, but the more you do, the more filled in your polka dot design becomes, which is my goal. So we still got lots of ink on our mat. I'm just going to pick that up. And there we go. So green is done. And now our last color is yellow. Okay, where's my yellow brush? Oh, under here. Yep. All right, let's pull out the yellow. And again, we want to clean off that stencil. We don't want to leave the green on there and then smear yellow all over it, because you'll end up with a completely different color sometimes. And that's not what we want to do. Okay. And now again, we're just going to rotate that the quarter turn. Okay. And pop our magnets on there. And we can blend our last color. So obviously you don't have to use this stencil to create the cards that I made. If you've got stencils in your stash, you can play with those. But if you're looking for a new one, something different, maybe you don't have something like this in your stash, this is a fun one for sure. It's not new, but I believe we do have it in stock. It is kind of one that we keep around because we like to use it, and it's just a good staple. Okay, so just filling in those last few dots, and then we're going to have a panel, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's kind of a really unique one. I quite like how this one turns out. So remove all of this, and you can see that the dots are more concentrated in the middle, and not too many of them overlap. Some do, but it's not a lot. And then what you can do is you can take your dies. So in this case, with this card here, I used the die horizontally. So this is the largest of the stitched mini slim dies, and I can just position that wherever I want on the panel. So if I want it to be up at high, so if I want like a few less dots in certain areas, or I can go in the middle where it's very concentrated, I can go down towards the end. So you can kind of decide where you want to place that, and then you can run your die through and you'll end up with your polka dotted panel. Now, I think I went kind of in the middle, so the dots are more concentrated through here, and then they kind of fade out to the outside. But I end up covering up a lot of that with my my cupcake dies, so I think it looks perfect. And then with the this card here, I just took a stitched rectangle die, and again, I positioned it horizontally, however I wanted that to be, and then I went ahead and die cut that out, and that's what created the background for this. And I think it looks really good with those little circles of color in behind. They just pop those cupcakes right off. On this one, I didn't do that. I really wanted to notch those dies together. If I used the circles in behind these, I would have to overlap the circles, which really isn't a bad idea. It just wasn't the look that I was going for. So I decided not to put them on there. But basically, that's how I created those cards. So again, just to recap, you can earn this die and stencil, which I have lost. Here it is, for free with a minimum $60 purchase over on our website. I'll just pop the banner up here for you. So there's our website address, www.twoscrapbookfriends.ca. This is a promotion that runs for a limited time. So we are starting the promotion on Friday, July 4th. I think it's the 4th. Let me just look. Yes, Friday, July 4th through Sunday, July 6th, while supplies last. We did send out an email about this, and I will put that link in the description below this YouTube video as well. So if you are not on our email list, you can click on that link and it will take you to the email, and you can read all the details about this promotion. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial, and I hope you're having a great weekend, and we will see you again soon.